All right, so today, all we're going to be doing for today is reacting to the latest Shoe0nHead video. I have not seen it yet. I've been avoiding watching it until right now so that I could react to it live. I imagine that I probably will have a lot to say about this, considering all I had to say in that unstructured rant a couple days ago about this whole situation. Um, so I guess let's get into it. Uh, Shu usually makes some pretty good videos, even if I disagree with her on a lot of things. So I guess without further ado,
On September 10th, Charlie Kirk was giving a talk at Utah Valley University, and out of nowhere, he was shot dead, live, in front of a bunch of college kids, in front of his wife, and his two children. And I don't think the country is ever going to be the same. Not only because of this horrific tragedy, but because of everything that followed. The dark, disturbing realization that we may not be on the same page as our coworkers, classmates, friends, neighbors, doctors, when it comes to the issue of murder. I was crashing out on Twitter a few days.
okay, I got to read this because I actually haven't read this either. These last 2 weeks have completely black-pilled me on the left. Even after 10 years of covering their antics, woke, slop, etc., I am not leaving the left. I still have all my economic left positions. I am quintessentially a 2015 Bernie bro, a Huey Long disciple for strong social safety nets, workers' rights, etc., that hasn't changed and only has gotten stronger with time. I side with them on things like Israel and war in general, but is that even what's left nowadays? I don't know. Looking around socially, personally, on a human level, if this is what the left is, I am not left. For the first time in a decade, I truly do not want to be grouped in with these people. It is now very clear we live on completely different realities with different morals. From the insane, bizarre reactions to the murder of an innocent woman on a train, reflexively getting uh, madder about people being mad about it than the actual murder, dismissing people's very real concerns about a dying, decaying society to, well, that's just living in a city, chud. Car accidents are more common, to celebrating the gruesome murder of a husband, father, just a guy, not a politician, not a CEO, a fucking guy. Okay, the CEO thing, I still have to disagree because that was beyond the pale as well. But okay, let's see. For having Normicon campus, Normicon campus conservative co-worker politics, for the crime of not being a liberal. They're not really liberal, but okay. Not believing in the current thing. It is clear how they reacted about the Charlie is how they would react about me, my friends, my family, and any of you, your friends, your family that have ever stepped out of line of the nebulous, ever changing definition of progressive. Yeah, that's true. Anyone who has ever been called a Nazi for the stupidest shit in the last 10 years. Charlie was staunchly right wing, but remember, none of you are pure enough. Many things have made me feel this way over the years. DNC, fucking Bernie twice, COVID lockdowns, the trucker protest, yeah, being lied to about Kyle Rittenhouse. Let's see, and believing it like a moron. At least she admits where she was wrong. Drag kid shit, being gaslit with the Balenciaga drama, realizing adults should be able to do what they want is becoming fascist. Okay, hold on. Thank YouTube for the shortcuts. Uh, is becoming a fascist belief. The bike Karen lie and how they wanted Daniel Penny's uh, head for, and I guess it doesn't finish there. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. The CEO thing with Luigi Mangione was also beyond the pale, and people are rightly calling out the fact that that did actually help to create an assassination culture, uh, which is what ended up leading to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I I stopped watching Based Camp because of that fucking rant the guy went on about like him losing his shit about how it was obviously justified. If I remember correctly. I don't know if it was like him say I don't remember. It's been a long time, but I remember the guy on that particular channel losing his shit, kind of shocking his wife, to be perfectly honest, about how much he lost his shit about whether or not the assassination of that CEO was justified, and it to be frank, it disgusted me because it was so obviously unjust despite the emotional content, because it turns out morality is not about your emotions. There is emotional content to morals, but morals are not reducible to emotional content, no matter what materialists want you to, want to reduce it to. Um, but yeah, so the CEO thing, I still would be, yeah, no, that was still wrong. Uh, but mostly, she has this completely correct. The reason everyone is uh, really pissed off about this is because, again, yeah, the guy, even if you didn't like his opinions, he was just a guy. He was a father. Now some little girl's got to grow up without without her daddy, uh, and they're just being totally fucking ghoulish about it. So let's see, what do we got here? Let's go back so we can actually hear her talk and not me talking over trying to read that.
When it comes to the issue of murder, I was crashing out on Twitter a few days ago, just stream of consciousness posting about it with run on sentences and everything. 4 days later, I have a clearer head, but I still feel the exact same way. So, we are going to talk about what happened, we're going to talk about the aftermath, and then we're going to get a little personal, because frankly, I don't see the country the same anymore, and I know a lot of you feel the exact same way. So, we're going to talk about it after we talk about everything else. Charlie Kirk was.
I mean, she's not wrong here. The country has changed, and this event, while the reaction did surprise me in terms of like how malevolent people were being right out of the fucking gate. Um, it was the degree that shocked me, not the kind of behavior. Because, and I went on about this in the last video. Most people didn't watch past 6 minutes of it, which is fair. People don't necessarily have the time to listen to me ramble on about the history of this stuff. But this is where this dialectical thinking was always going to go. Because ultimately, these people have a lot of nested assumptions in their worldview that make it to where they don't really see you fully as a human being like them. The whole concept of class consciousness, of separating people into classes that are fundamentally operating on different cognitive operating systems, if you will. So they can't really understand each other, is a very dangerous idea, because if you can't understand the person you are having a disagreement with, you can't reason with them, you can't come to a mutual understanding, which leaves only violence left. And this is by design. So last time when I was talking about this, I talked about the Gnostic origins of Marxism, and that this whole this class warfare thing is a just an is a modernization of an old categorization in Gnosticism with the pneumatics and the hylics. So the hylics are the materialists who have no spirituality, and the pneumatics are those who live fully in the spiritual. And then between them, you have what is effectively the people who could be swayed either way, and those are the psychics. Now, in class conflict theory, with the Marxists, you do actually have an in between, which is why you have the petty bourgeoisie, because you have the proletariat, you have which are the bourgeois, which are the pneumatics. You have the bourgeoisie, which are the hylics, and then you have those people who are not fully materialist, so they're not the bourgeois per se, but they're also not in the proletariat camp, and they can move either way, which is how the psychics can become the petty bourgeois. And yes, if you've ever read the core Marxist documents, it does encourage murder through revolution, and terrorism for violence for political ends. It is a violent Gnostic religion, and all class conflict theories have this problem because they all derive from this polylogistic thinking. When the Nazis were doing their thing, all they did to develop Nazism was just switch out bourgeoisie with Jew and proletariat with Aryan, and then you have the entire like Nazi structure built for you right there. Everything follows from that one switch up. But that's also why there was no debate, no like communication between the two, because the aggressing side literally didn't think the other side were human beings. And you see this same thing going on in modern academia. We have class conflict theories and critical race theory. You have class conflict as the basis of radical feminism. You have class conflict as the basis of post colonialism, of all of these post Marxian theories. And the point of this is that they propose some kind of enlightenment that is pre empirical, that you, as the unenlightened, as the people who reject them, can't possibly understand. So anytime you critique them, even if you're correct in your critique, you don't really understand them. And that's the cope that they use. Because otherwise, they would actually have to potentially hold themselves and their beliefs to some kind of account. Uh, so, but instead, they would rather pretend as if they're enlightened beings, and in order to do that, they have to, in their own mind, negate your humanity and your ability to follow them in their abstraction earnestly. So, uh, let's keep going.
Not a healthcare CEO. He was not a powerful politician. And let me be 100% clear, I'm not saying this to say that it's okay when those people are murdered. My point is that
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't think she was saying that. I just had to be clear about that. Like, even in the caveat of like, he wasn't even this. Yeah, I get what she's saying, but also that caveat shouldn't be made in the first place. Because again, people you don't like are human beings. They are still human beings. They can be evil, but they are still human beings. So we still have to treat them as if they're human because, well, it turns out that's exactly what they are.
those are positions of power that most people cannot relate to. Like, the average person is just so far removed from that world. But I think what happened to Charlie is hitting differently because, like I said on
He was a regular guy.
he was just a fucking guy. He was a fucking podcaster. He was a guy who talked about politics. He was a guy who had conservative beliefs. Not everyone knows a billionaire CEO or a powerful politician, but they do know somebody with conservative beliefs.
Yeah, and to be clear, the part that's even more infuriating is like, and this is part of the thing that makes it so egregious, is that Charlie Kirk was not an extremist in any way, shape, or form. He was fairly milk toast. He was fairly center in like he's still being on the right, but he was fairly center. So it's not like they went after someone who was so extremely diametrically opposed to them. The reason they get away with calling him right is because they intentionally have, in their own framing, moved the Overton window, so the range of acceptable positions, further and further and further left every generation and every year. And this is by design, because the dialectic does not have a stopping mechanism. The dialectic always marches on because it's always trying to resolve the problem at hand, even though reality is not a problem you can resolve. Reality is something you make trade offs with because it cannot be solved by human hands and human power. The dialectic doesn't recognize this. All problems can be solved through the will to power.
They know somebody who holds some or many of Charlie Kirk's opinions. Because despite what people in their little bubble believe, his core ideology and what he believed is the same shit like your conservative boomer uncle on Facebook posts. You can only disagree with this if you are unfamiliar with Charlie Kirk or you are unfamiliar with the many different branches and different ideologies of the right wing. Now, don't get me wrong, Charlie Kirk had many bad takes over the years. Like, for example, the two most popular quotes I see people posting are the one where he advocated for stoning gays and black women are too stupid to be pilots. But guess what? Both those things, the two most popular quotes people are posting to justify this guy being murdered, are out of context.
Oh, thank God. She actually did some modicum of research for this. Yeah, so it turns out that, interesting. It turns out that, yeah, these were taken completely out of context, which, yeah, they do this all the fucking time. All you have to do is, like, watch a Destiny podcast and watch how he actually just, sometimes even after hearing the actual statement that he's going to respond to, refuses to actually engage the statement as is and instead uses the tool of rhetoric, so that's the manipulation of language, to change the meaning of what was just said. And he does so purposely. It's not like he's doing this because he's an idiot. They do this on purpose because it helps them to justify their views of you by changing what the words that come out of your mouth actually mean. And it's not like words matter on their own. Words do have their own meaning on their own, but the meaning of a word can change based on context. And yeah, it turns out if you remove or you change the context, the same sentence can mean wildly different things. They do this shit on purpose. There's a reason why oftentimes when they quote people they don't like, they will selectively quote them in parts. And that's to justify, again, demonizing you by taking the most clippable moment you have and then framing that in the worst way possible.
But idiots like Stephen King ran with it, then later
I hope this guy gets fucking sued into the ground by Charlie Kirk's estate.
had to apologize for spreading misinformation about a dead man. These people will build a straw man of you in their minds. They get so fucking mad about it that they celebrate the real you dying.
Okay, so part of this is sorry, I'm going to pause a lot because I don't really think reaction videos should be mostly dead air. But part of this is, again, I explained this in the last video, is the fact that they are idea first, reality second. So critical consciousness and all of these ideas that they have are not based on empirical study. They're not actually based on empirical sciences. They're not based on empirical observation. They are based on a idea that they have in their head that they believe to be better than the world around them. And the reason they believe this is because they believe that the world around them is ultimately fake. The postmodernists coined the term hyper-reality, literally that which lies beyond reality, as an illusion which man is trapped in that estranges himself and from the real world beyond the hyper-reality. And again, it sounds like Gnosticism because it's exactly what it is. All of these ideas, what they do is they're basically sorcery. Now, and this is to say it's the use of the tools a magician uses, the manipulation of sense perception through signs and symbols to change the way you yourself view the world. And the way that they do this in the ideologies is they use rhetoric, which is the manipulation of language and its structure, sophism, which is the manipulation of bad philosophy. So they oftentimes will start with a priori reasoning and not a posteriori reasoning. And then there is con epistemology, where they say these things with absolute conviction. That way they can seem as if they're trustworthy based on sheer confidence alone. That's why it's called confidence epistemology. So they use these things to create a sense of false verisimilitude so that people will believe them and follow them into these lies. And all that they become is, if you know the Gnostic lore, you know, there's the whole concept of the demiurgos, the creator of the false reality, who traps the souls of man who exist in the pleroma and estranges them from themselves. They are the demiurge that they themselves want to destroy. Karl Marx calls the God of the Jews in On the Jewish Question, he calls it money, and he calls capitalism Judaism. Now, it's very clearly rhetorical, but it's very interesting that this is the line of the speech that he ends up using, because this basically creates the economic version of Gnosticism, where the false God, who doesn't know that he's not God, creates a false reality. This is the superstructure, and this estranges humanity from his natural divine nature that he is born estranged to in this false world that needs to be overthrown. And in fact, you see in Marx's writings, for example, the whole idea that man cannot really be free until he is creator of his own species being. And it's interesting that he mocks metaphysics while using metaphysical terms. I mean, your species is what you are, and your being is that you are. So the only way that you can become free is by becoming creator of your own species being, means you are supplanting the role of God in the life of in the life of man as, you know, he is in the anthropological sense. So there's a lot of interesting parallels between these leftist ideologies and ancient Gnostic belief systems, and this is not by accident. Gnosticism is effectively a virus of the mind. It's a meme. Like, memes are the genetic structure of cultures. The Gnostic framework is a virus that changes its accidents and its appearances so that it can parasitize off of other worldviews. It did this with paganism. It did this with Judaism, with Kabbalah. It did this multiple times with Christianity, with the Sethians, the Ophites, the Albigensians, with the Albigensians specifically with Catholicism, with the Hegelianism, which was a Lutheran parasitism of, which is a Gnostic parasitism of Lutheranism, and unsurprisingly, Marx was a student of Hegel. So this Gnostic infection of atheism comes from Hegel. So let's see.
Horrifying. But more importantly, even if everything was in context, who cares?
Oh yeah. So where I was going with that is that's how they can demonize you, because if this world that is our sensible perception is actually a prison that we're unjustly caught in by either powers that are either indifferent to or actively maligned against our will, and you happen to worship the principle that keeps that prison in place, then you are a false imprisoner in their eyes. You're basically a devil worshiper. And while they may not think of these in that explicit terms, the underlying psychological structure is still there. These people do genuinely despise you. Make no mistake about that. And they celebrate your death because they believe you to be complicit in their estrangement from themselves. And they celebrated Charlie Kirk's death because, even though he was just a guy, because he supported capitalism and patriarchy, this is to their own assessment, and what they associate with whiteness, because he allegedly supported all these things, he is the agent of the demiurgic power keeping them imprisoned in time. That's why they hate him. That's why they killed him. Because what he did worked, and it set their eschatological problem or their end time projects back. Okay, so I guess continue.
He said this. I don't care. There are many things he said that I disagree with. There are many things he said that I think are bad. Who cares? It is just a fact that nothing he said warranted his life being taken away. This is America. We have freedom of speech here. Unless you criticize a certain country, but for the most part, we have freedom of speech here. So after detaining not just one wrong guy, but two wrong guys, the FBI finally got the shooter. Only because his own father turned him in. I guess they
absolutely fucking respect the father for doing that, by the way. That could not have been easy, but it was the right thing to do. That could not have been easy at fucking all. But I just have to say, like, that's all I got to say about that.
They were just too fucking busy not releasing the Epstein files to catch a political assassin.
Okay, I gotta pause this one here. I do want the Epstein files released, but there's actually a reason that isn't conspiratorial about why the files are not going to get released. And actually, Nate the lawyer, I'll probably put it in the description of this video, but Nate the lawyer actually explained why the files are never going to get released. And it has to do with a non-prosecution agreement that is legally binding that was made during the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein. And again, if I have a sneaking suspicion that Ghislaine Maxwell, and I hate to say this, could probably use that if she actually went back to court. And she took this to the Supreme Court, because let's be fair, they're going to fight this the whole way. The Supreme Court would probably rule in her favor. And again, Nate the lawyer explains why that would be the case. It has a lot to do with precedent and history and all that kind of. I hate that that's the case, but again, I'll put the video in the description because I don't think this is ever getting released. And I think part of it is just because of some jackass prosecutor making an inappropriate deal with him when he was arrested.
It was this ass demon, Tyler Robinson, 22 years old, another irony-poisoned Reddit shooter who wrote a bunch of memes on the bullets, including "Hey fascist catch" and
"Notices bulges, capital OWO, what's this question mark?"
I fucking hate it here. A lot of people were saying that the shooter was a groiper, which is a far-right fan of the streamer Nick Fuentes, and I have no fucking idea where that came from. I'm gonna be so honest, I have seen no actual proof of this.
It's just psychological projection. That's all it is. So you'll notice very quickly when you start researching Vogelin's work on Gnosticism and its relation to modern ideology. And yeah, fair enough. James Lindsay does carry on this work. He makes a number of egregious errors. So, I mean, keep that in mind if you do read his work. But these people, they commit psychological projection because, again, go back to the whole Gnostic thing. They are doing the thing that they accuse their enemy class of doing. They are the ones creating a false world and estranging their own people from themselves for this ideological project. Because by being part of this ideological project and therefore being anti-realist, you don't really live in the real. And that's by design. You see this in, for example, Plato's allegory of the cave. Well, who the fuck are the wizards who are actually trapping people in the cave? They're the sophists and the rhetoricians of the time, which is why Plato warned against both of those. You know, but anyway, so all they're doing is they're accusing you of doing the things that they themselves are doing, and yeah, they're not far right, but they accuse you of being an extremist because they are extremists. They accuse you of being evil because deep down on a subconscious level, they know that this is itself evil. They're projecting their shadow onto you, to use Jung's language. And they call you a Nazi. And to be perfectly fair, Kirsche is 100% fucking right about this. They call you a Nazi for two reasons. One of which Kirsche says, the other one I'm about to say. Kirsche's right in that they call you a Nazi not because they believe you're a Nazi, but to justify what they want to do to you. They want to do terrible things to you. They want terrible things done to you. And if they can label you as something objectively evil, then in their minds, they can justify those evil things having been done to you, whether by their own hands or not. The thing I'm about to add to this is that this has to go back to the left and right wing. It makes no sense that on the two extreme ends of the left and the right are both socialism, with the left extremists being Marxists and the right extremists being Nazis, racial socialists. That doesn't make any sense. Partly because the left and right wing are actually based on occult practices, the left and right hand paths of magic of the occult. But anyway, that aside, that's not so important right now. But that's the whole But that's on purpose. They want they want Nazis to be diametrically opposed to them so that they can corral you, their opponent, into that category. They want you to become those things they're accusing you of being. Again, that way they can more easily justify what they want to do to you. They do actually want you to become those things because Marxism and all of these class conflict theories, they are about the struggle of the oppressed class against the oppressor. They want you to be that oppressor they accuse you of. That way they can enact their heroic struggle to overthrow you. So do not give them what they want. Simple as that. These people do not deserve getting what they want. Don't give it to them.
And it doesn't make sense because someone further right than Charlie Kirk wouldn't call Charlie Kirk a fascist, and they wouldn't say he was hateful. Their proof is that the shooter once dressed up like the Slav squat meme from 2012, And they also found a separate meme of Pepe the Frog dressed like the Slav squat meme. Therefore, the shooter is a groiper. That
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I've never heard of this meme before.
is like seeing a photo of the shooter dressed like a clown, and then seeing this image of Pepe the Frog dressed like a clown, and then being like groiper confirmed. What is the connection? The shooter didn't even post the Pepe image. Like, where did the Pepe even come from? Just a bunch of liberal boomers not understanding memes. The other thing I saw was the shooter had Republican parents, and therefore the shooter must be Republican, which is just funny because we all see what these people say about their Republican parents every Thanksgiving. But I guess we'll see. It's September 14th when I am recording this, so maybe more things will come out. Editor Shoe here, more things came out. Definitely not a groiper. At the end of the day, he could have every single one of my or your opinions. It ultimately doesn't matter. One person may have pulled the trigger, but then we saw the reaction of many.
Yeah, and this is the important part. It really does not matter anything about the shooter. The more important thing is how these ghouls that live next to us actually decided to react. And it is completely unjustifiable. Mentis is absolutely right about physical removal. These people need to be physically removed from, a la Hans Hermann Hoppe. But we need to be physically separated. We cannot live side by next to people who actively hate us and want us dead. Now, Trent Horn's also correct in that we should still outreach to these people and try to save them from this cult delusion that they found themselves in. But that being said, that just because you should still outreach to these people doesn't mean you need to be an idiot. Loving your enemy does not necessarily mean rolling over and letting them win. Sometimes putting your foot down is the most compassionate response to someone. So
we think that Charlie Kirk...
Loving is the word I was looking for, not compassionate. Sorry, I'm stuck in a conversation in my brain that I was having before I watched this.
Just got shot in the neck. Hey, ooh.
Like, again, this is fucking... I hesitate to use the word demonic because there's actually much, much worse that people have done. This is fucking bad, but it gets way fucking worse if you know anything about history. But yeah, this is fucking grotesque. Like, the idea that you would celebrate someone's death is just fucking anti-human, to be perfectly honest. Never
I'm not saying she deserved it, but I'm saying God's timing is always right.
There's the subversion of, but it's not. So this isn't as much of a subversion as people think it is. Again, the whole Gnostic conception is that the creator force of the world of our sensible perceptions is a malevolent deceiver, the demiurgos. Just a historical note, demiurgos does not actually mean false creator, it means handworker. And if you believe that the creator of the material world is actually the true God, you can still call that God the demiurgos. In fact, actually, demiurgos is one of the titles that the Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholics call God, because he is creator of the material world. So it's one of those words with a lot of polysemy behind it, and its meaning varies behind context. But in the Gnostic framework, the God of the transcendent idea, so the God of pure abstraction, is not the same entity as the creator, the false creator of the sensible world, which is the demiurgos, the Eyal Dabaoth, which the Gnostics associated with the God of Christianity, because the God of Christianity creates the physical material world, this. So if you do believe that the world of your sensible perceptions is fundamentally evil, if you believe that you're in a hyper reality, then yeah, whatever the God of outside of the hyper reality is going to be diametrically opposed to the God of the hyper reality, because the God of the hyper reality is acting in rebellion to the God of the transcendent abstraction. So, as malevolent as this is, again, she doesn't see Charlie Kirk as a human being. She sees Charlie Kirk as a demon worshiper who doesn't really have a soul. The Hylics have no spiritual life. They are just effectively not animals, but they're also not fully human. So she literally doesn't see Charlie Kirk as a full equal human being to herself. Oh shit, there's a chatter. This woman, I have no idea. Let's see. Again, this is just ghoulish.
Kirk, bro. I've never been happier.
Never believe the reason I'm smiling. And it has nothing to do with Charlie Kirk.
I will agree with Leaflit though. Like these people have like malevolent smiles. Like I can't articulate it off the top of my head, but there's something apish about it. Like the way that their teeth show. It bothers the hell out of me. Also, I guess nose ring theory, to anyone who cares about that.
Nothing to do with...
I would say pour one out for Kirky boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
Rest in peace, bozo!
Charlie Kirk just got put down like a fucking dog in Utah.
I do not, and I will not, ever feel bad when bad people get what the fuck they deserve.
I just heard that someone shot Charlie Kirk? Thoughts and prayers.
Oh no, someone shot Charlie Kirk. Look, I don't know who needs to hear this today, but that's how you pick up a woman.
That's demonic. Anyway, one thing that crosses my mind. Again, I mentioned this in the last stream, but these people, they have a post-Hegelian view of the world. Now, Hegel believed that history uses and then discards people. So you are useful to history as the project of moving from this false reality into the true reality over time. But as soon as you're not actually needed, you're discarded. So, and you do see this in, again, all of these revolutionary ideas where anyone who was key to the formation of their ideas eventually becomes irrelevant and must themselves be torn down. Just think about like how they treat the classical liberals. Even though classical liberalism does not necessarily lead to this, the Gnostic infiltration of the classical liberal ideas does eventually necessarily lead to this. Classical liberalism, safeguarded by Scottish common sense realism, doesn't devolve into this monstrosity. But this is just, again, you are not valuable in and of yourself. You're only valuable insofar as you move the dialectic across history from thesis and antithesis to synthesis. So the final solution of all contradictions. And again, she does not see Charlie Kirk as a human being co-equal to her. The trans community thing, okay. Yeah, I could probably... last time I talked a lot about the trans ideology stuff as well. As far as... The trans ideology is probably the most obviously Gnostic ideology, where you just have to remember, like, if your mind and your body are two separate things, then, or are actually separable, then which one are you? Are you your body or are you your mind? Well, if you're your body and you have gender dysphoria or some misconception about your body, then since you're your body, then your mind has to be brought into alignment with the reality of your physical body. If, on the other hand, you are a spirit trapped in the machine, a la, Rene Descartes, even if it's a very useful machine, then it's still a machine you're trapped in. So if you're a mind and your body is not in alignment with your mind, then the body has to be brought into alignment with the mind. And again, as I said earlier, with this hyper-reality, if you are standing in the way of someone escaping this hyper-reality, through their Gnostic bullshit, then you are acting as a expression, an emanation of the demiurge in time and space. And so again, they don't really see you as a human being. They see you as the physical as, again, devil worshippers. This is why they hate you.
Heard someone got shot today. I had a tummy ache this morning. Stay alive out there.
The sympathy for Charlie Kirk is weird. You don't have to like violence, but I'm confused as to how you thought the revolution was going to be magically bloodless.
I've been saying we need to bring...
Okay, so that one actually has a point. The revolution was never going to be bloodless. Any of these revolutionary ideas, they did intend murder. And they intended it on a far larger scale. So, I will at least appreciate that one came way fucking more mask off than the other ones did.
Political assassinations. I don't feel bad, and I don't think that everyone deserves the right to free speech. I think some people should be afraid to express their opinion in public.
She doesn't believe in free speech at all. Okay, anyway.
I didn't like what he said, and I didn't like his opinions, and I don't really give a shit that he's dead.
The best part of this whole goddamn thing is that he is not martyr material, so his death will mean nothing.
That didn't age well. But, again, she doesn't really understand the people around her. So, funny thing is that apparently there have been, and I hate using psychological studies because there's so many problems with the soft sciences. They're barely sciences, to be perfectly honest. But from what research has been done on the ability of conservatives and liberals, and by liberals I mean neoliberals, to simulate the thoughts and cognitive processes of each other, conservatives have pretty consistently shown a more accurate ability to simulate the thoughts and thought processes of the left than the left has of the right. Again, I don't really like the unidimensional spectrum, but I do find it interesting, and you see an example here. She literally cannot understand the person who died to the extent that she doesn't understand how it's a tragedy. She doesn't see you as a human being.
It will activate no one. It will impact few. It's just great.
There are a lot of people that are like, no matter what side of politics you're on, you should never celebrate something bad happening to someone. I, on the other hand, do cheer when bad things happen to bad people.
I hate to tell you this, lady, but you are not yourself a good person.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
The fucking Mario Kart. Oh my god. It's the fucking Mario Kart music.
I saw the video before they even put out the confirmation. There was no chance that he made it through that. This wasn't the one we were hoping for, but a welcome surprise nonetheless.
Okay, so about that, I actually did see the video about 15 minutes after the event happened. I actually saw it at work, and I didn't see the angle he got shot at. So since I didn't, so I actually thought that there was a possibility he could survive that, even if it was just by a fucking 1 in 1,000 chance. But I found out later that based on how the bullet actually entered him and what actually happened during the shot, I disagree with the people who said he was probably gone instantly. I think he was knocked out, but I don't think he was actually dead instantly. But yeah, just the fact that you could watch that video and come away thinking, oh yeah, that was a good thing, and we're the good people who support it. These people do not have the same moral lexicon that you do. They do not see what you see of as good to be good, and they don't see what you see to be evil to be evil. They are an incompatible culture with its own incompatible moral system living besides you. you cannot reconcile these moral systems together. They have to be, again, we have to physically remove ourselves and them from the same communities.
I'm surprised that y'all didn't get rid of him sooner. And I'm surprised that you guys aren't getting rid of more people. Like, don't stop with him. Don't let him be the end dog. Get rid of them all. His wife deserves to go too. Y'all keep on talking about his wife and kids. They need to go too because they're carrying on that mentality and that lineage. Like, get rid of the whole family. I'm so sorry. Why did you guys stop with him?
That's not surprising because remember what happened to the Romanov family? Yeah, it turns out the murder of entire families isn't exactly uncommon in revolutionary ideas. Because if an entire family holds to a particular idea that holds the dialectic back, they have to be removed through threat of death. Like, again, history uses then discards people. You may have been useful to get history up to a certain point, but then you have to be discarded because you don't have any intrinsic value as a human being under this worldview.
Thousands of videos like that. Some of these people posting with their full names and faces, with hundreds and thousands of likes. Thousands of tweets celebrating it, with 500,000 likes. And it's important to remember that all of those likes are a real person. Millions of people in this country apparently believe the acceptable response to speech they don't like is murder.
Yeah, because remember, silence is violence. And then that means that violence is also self-defense. This all goes back to the Berkeley issue with the Berkeley campus and the free speech, the getting rid of the free speech zones because college has to be a safe space. Well, if you're a soul trying to escape the hyper reality and transcend this fake sensible reality. Oh, that's a bot. Anyway, if you're trying to escape this hyper reality, and damn it, I lost my train of thought. Damn bot. I'm gonna have to rewind this.
Apparently believe the acceptable response to speech.
Oh yeah, there it is. Because again, if you're a mind, then mental harm is more important than physical harm because what you actually are is a ghost in the machine. So yeah, your words actually are more pressing than physical violence under that particular worldview because the mind is primary, not reality. Consciousness is primary, not reality. So your body is a secondary concern to your mental well-being. And again, they have a different understanding of what constitutes mental well-being and mental harm. So your words causing them harm do justify in their minds violence against you. So just again, these people are unhinged.
They don't like is murder. This wasn't just a bunch of fringe blue hair SJWs or whatever. They were teachers, professors, doctors, HR workers, healthcare workers, nurses, pediatricians, people who work with kids, people's classmates, roommates. They are teachers.
So anyone who has been paying attention to the bullshit that's been going on in American schools should not be surprised about the teachers celebrating this stuff, or at least a significant portion of teachers celebrating this. The Marxist infiltration of the schools has been ongoing and largely unopposed in any meaningful respect. And this is the result. A lot of parents don't actually raise their children. They expect the moral instruction of their children to come from the teachers. They offload that responsibility. We actually see this with the whole attempt to censor the internet right now, where parents aren't actually parenting their children. They're expecting media companies to do their job. This is just a common thing that's been going on for generations, apparently. But, yeah, I mean, it turns out if you offload the moral instruction of your children to someone else, that someone else might not necessarily give them the moral instruction that you would rightly want them to have.
Showing our children the gory horrifying video of Charlie's murder on repeat. The hippy-dippy "in this house we believe" shitlib mask was ripped off, and underneath was nothing but psychopathic bloodlust. I have seen people on the right celebrate the death of people they disagree with. I've seen it. I remember Heather Heyer in 2017. But I also remember...
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who that is, but also just... I just don't get it. I don't get the people who can celebrate people dying. It just does not make sense to me. Like, I understand the psychological architecture for it. It just does not seem intuitive to me. Like, I understand it on an analytical level, but I cannot feel the same way. It just doesn't. You know, I'm starting to understand how Kirsha has a difficult time understanding certain things now. I've come to better understand not understanding.
For the whole internet, left and right, coming together to disavow and mock the few dozen people from Stormfront who were celebrating her death. This is different. It's never been like this before. It's never been this much. It's never been this brazen. Normal people have to log into like an alternate Twitter account where they can post their more unorthodox opinions. And these people are out here, full face, full name, like, hell yeah, murder.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't exactly make that specific like connection until she said it. But yeah, a lot of people with rather realistic, just honestly moderate views, they can't post regular opinions, sometimes even just state regular facts without potentially getting in trouble from work or from their social circles. And then these people come on and they post this, which is far worse than what most people who get in trouble for a lot of this stuff, for a lot of what they post online, is. And they're brazen about it. They feel as if there are no consequences because, quite frankly, for that particular side of the aisle, there haven't been any real consequences to the antics that they've been having, which is why they feel emboldened. But yeah, that you know what? Fair enough, Shoe. That is actually a connection I didn't make. I'm gonna have to remember that.
What? The smug, unearned confidence these people have to be openly sociopathic with their full name and face because they live under the pathetic delusion of being on the right side of history needs to end.
I'm gonna pause there for just a moment. Ask yourself this: who determines the right side of history? The part they won't tell you for the most part is that the right side of history is actually determined retrospectively. That at the end of history in these eschatological frameworks is the overturn of the superstructure and the structures that compose the hyperreality. And so man at the end of history, and by end we mean telos or purpose. So man at the end of history looks back as enlightened man and judges history that came before him. There is a divine judge. They won't call him divine, but there is a divine judge, a man who has undergone apotheosis, become a god in these worldviews. Again, this is just a religion pretending to be politics. It is not political. It is primarily religious. It is not an Abrahamic religion. It's not a pagan religion. And it's not an atheistic religion. It is a Gnostic religion.
They will blame you for your death because words are violence. Words are violence.
I said this earlier.
Killing you is just self-defense.
I said this earlier.
That's why they're using Kyle Rittenhouse as some kind of gotcha. Oh, if you don't condone political violence, why do you support Kyle Rittenhouse?
That wasn't even political violence. The guy drove 10 minutes across state lines, which didn't matter because it was like a 10 fucking minute drive or like a 20-minute drive. So you could drive within a city and have that, and it was obviously self-defense. The guy was very clearly in a situation where he was in immediate danger. That's not political violence. Self-defense is not political violence. Well, to be fair, these people do take the fascist approach of everything is political. The whole concept, so by their own definition, it would be political only because everything by their definition is political. So I guess there's that.
You don't see the difference between killing someone over speech and killing someone over self-defense, because these are the same things to them. Also, I'm going to be the one to point it out, because of course I am. I saw nobody else do it. Why are most of them women? Most of the people celebrating are women. Like,
oh, there's a take that could potentially get me in trouble. It's because a lot of Gnostic thought is a lot more feminine in nature, like the dark feminine, not the properly ordered feminine. It is largely the disordered feminism, not feminism, but feminine, which is why second wave feminists, for example, would talk. There are second wave texts about feminism that talk well about Tiamat as the primordial goddess. But Tiamat is the dragon of primordial waters, the chaos before form. It's kind of interesting that it's not order, which is celebrated in that case, but instead of the very form of formless chaos.
It's a good, like, 80-20 ratio all over the internet. What is going on, ladies? Basically, the whole country is shook because last year they realized how many people would celebrate the murder of a president, and this year they realized how many people would celebrate the murder of them.
Again, it shouldn't have taken this long to figure this out. I wasn't surprised by this in terms, again, like, of what kind of reaction happened. I was shocked at the degree of people who were blatantly, like, felt invincible to say this horrendous shit, and I'm actually glad they did say this, because they've outed themselves. But, you know, back with the Luigi Mangione thing, I was like, no, that was horrendous. That was absolutely malevolent. Doesn't matter if, like, they're, like, assassination bad, just across the board. There's a reason why the Catholic Church, you don't even have to be Catholic, but you can still understand why the Catholic Church has across the board said political assassinations are unjustified. Actually, assassination in general, they say, is unjustified. It's not just political assassination. But again, they are right about this, whether you're Catholic or not.
At the end of the day, this is all the inevitable conclusion of the punch a Nazi thing from, like, 2017.
Again, they call you a Nazi because they want to do bad things to you. And if you're a Nazi, you have less empathy from the people who might see you get hurt.
Remember that? We always knew it was a slippery slope. That's why we were against it. And they always say this dumb shit like, if you don't want to be called a Nazi, stop being a Nazi.
So the problem here is that these people have an intersubjective ontology of the world. So the world doesn't pre-exist their perception. It exists as an interplay of perceptions. And you can tell this based off of, they don't say this anymore, but back, I don't remember the years this was happening, but I remember people in the trans ideology community talking about their existence being erased by people not agreeing with them about their gender perception, about, like, not committing to following how these people viewed themselves. And the only way that actually makes sense is if, one, they're idealists, so they believe that consciousness precedes matter, but two, if that consciousness is not a singular thing, but rather the interplay of minds that brings about the material world that we end up inhabiting. So what would be the word? I cannot English. I have an English degree. What the hell? Oh yeah. You're actively interfering with them actualizing their self-perception if you don't agree with them. That's why they get so violent and so mad about this, because again, they believe reality is generated through the interplay of minds. Which, funny enough, is actually how the Italian fascists thought. You cannot actually be a fascist unless you are an actual idealist, because the entire project of fascism, as outlined by Giovanni Gentile, the founder of fascism, was entirely based on actual idealism, which held exactly this. It's why they worship the state, because the state they defined as the collective of all human activity. And since the state is God, we are all part of God by the collective interplay of this intersubjective ontology. So it is kind of funny that these people are closer to fascists on a foundational level, not just their behavior too, but on a foundational level than the people they actually call fascists. And they do this by design. The undermining of language for the purpose of control is entirely the point.
Even a congressman from my state, New York, was like, oh, if you want to stop being called a fascist, you should stop being a fascist.
This bothers the hell out of me, because words actually have very specific meanings, and here's the thing. These people on these esoteric elements of like the right and the left, because this is esoteric left language right here. These words have two meanings. They have an exoteric meaning and an esoteric meaning. They have a meaning that's meant to be understood by the outsider, and then a meaning to be understood by the initiated. So all these words that they throw around that seem to be inappropriately used, they are not being inappropriately used. They are meaning to, at the same time, communicate two different messages to two different listeners. To an uninitiated, to communicate one message, that's the exoteric meaning, that covers for the message that the initiated will receive. That's the esoteric meaning. So, there's that.
Yeah, that's great. Except you've called everyone and their mother a fascist and a Nazi for the past, 15 years. And I see a lot of progressives in my audience like, Shoe, you're not like Charlie Kirk. You're not a fascist. Here are all the things I have been called Nazi, fascist, reactionary for over the last few years. Would you like to see? I have been making this list since 2023. Let's go. Let's just read this together real quick.
This should be fun.
/ criticizing pop feminism. Believing adults can do whatever they want. Being pro-free speech. Being liberal. Talking to people I disagree with. Being friends with people I disagree with. Following people on Twitter I disagree with. Supporting Bernie Sanders. That one came from the right. Being registered independent. Criticizing Joe Biden. Criticizing the Democratic Party. Not being attracted to feminine men. Not hating men in general. Criticizing Canada's MAID program. Not taking the COVID vaccine. Criticizing the FBI. Criticizing the CIA. Believing the CIA killed JFK. Using an American flag backdrop for my videos. Saying elites. Saying working class. Saying based. Making a joke about Joe Biden eating ice cream, making a joke about Pete Buttigieg being born in a test tube, making jokes in general, being cis, being white, being a woman, being a cis white woman, telling someone to take a shower, not being anti-gun, not being fat, being monogamous, liking Huey Long, celebrating the 4th of July, supporting Assange, criticizing the movie Cuties, praising the movie Sound of Freedom, being against pedophilia, being against the destigmatization of pedophilia, being against children watching porn, being critical of kink at Pride, being against children performing at drag shows, not being racist, I swear to God, being a class reductionist, saying biological sex, mocking people for debating the ethics of necrophilia.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this because I don't remember the class reductionism thing. I am gonna have to look that term up. That one is fairly new to me. I've actually never heard that term.
My username, owning a pet rabbit.
Her fucking her username? What the fuck? Okay.
Questioning the Bush administration's involvement in 9/11, growing up in a Catholic family, eating meat, wanting to get married, wanting to have children, being married, having children, being at January 6th to interview people, saying it's okay if someone doesn't want to date a porn star, not wanting to do OnlyFans, criticizing Kanye West, criticizing late-stage capitalism, criticizing the billionaire class.
Late stage capitalism has been capitalism's been in late stage for how fucking long? I'm starting to think that I'm starting to think this whole seer thing, this whole oracular knowledge of the future that these people with their eschatological projects have might not be all that accurate.
Criticizing Israel, criticizing eating the bugs, criticizing a fashion company for being creepy, you'll remember that one, supporting nuclear energy, parentheses, its toxic masculinity, supporting TikTok tradwives, supporting one-income households, supporting UBI, supporting farmers, supporting truckers, not celebrating October 7th, supporting Palestine, not liking brutalism, saying colorblind anti-racism was good, wanting to date someone who has a good relationship with their parents, not liking Indian food, saying men and women are different but complement each other, being followed by JD Vance on Twitter, saying Hillary Duff is cool, making fun of Reddit, and for Asmongold reacting to me, criticizing American imperialism, wearing a bow in my hair, liking VTubers, and now being anti-death.
Charlie Kirk was a fucking Nazi. He was a fucking Nazi. And you know what kind of Nazi is the best Nazi? A dead one.
Do you want no? The best form of a Nazi is a reformed Nazi. It's always better for someone to be reformed than to die. It's striking that anyone has to say that, but it's true. Like an ex-Satanist or an ex-gang member who's actually converted to a decent worldview and a decent actual character, who's cultivated a good character by moving away from their vices, that is better. It's so obviously better. Oh my god. Again, these people are unironically evil. They believe you to be ontologically evil. Again, these people think that you and your very being are evil. You can't live alongside people who think that the very fact you exist is itself an injury to the moral, to the moral fabric of the world.
I'm a better person than you for celebrating the death of a Nazi. And actually, it's pretty weird that you're not, and simultaneously asking people to have empathy for the Nazi.
Nazis have children and families, right? But Nazis also get shot in the neck.
They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you.
Oh, okay, so Blair White's the one who said this. I heard this from fucking Kirsha, but apparently I missed a banger Blair White tweet. So, there you go.
Now, I'm going to talk about my personal feelings of the situation because I know a lot of you can relate. I know a lot of you have been feeling the exact same way. So I will try and put it into words for you. I have friends who were friends with Charlie Kirk, but I didn't personally know him. We follow each other on Twitter. I've been to the TPUSA Amerifest in 2021. I actually went there planning to make a video making fun of it, but I had so much fun and met so many friends that I'm still friends with to this day. So that video never happened. I disagreed with him all the time. You can literally go to our Twitter interactions. I was always correcting him about, Bernie Sanders. I made an egg look like his face. It is safe to say I was no fan. But this has really shaken me in a way that I absolutely did not expect. These last few days after what happened, I kept going to every single, lefty, liberal, left-wing person I know and, checking out what they have been saying about this. And besides maybe 4 or 5, every single one was being an unhinged psychopath about this. Or saying some backhanded shit like, this is why we need gun control, which, first of all, we were just watching a whole bunch of people celebrate killing someone over political differences. You are never taking our guns now. That is not happening.
Yeah, I gotta pause this. Sorry, I wanted to let her finish and my finger actually slipped. But, yeah, he was killed in a gun-free zone. Those gun laws didn't seem to protect him. I just have to point that out there. So. And also, as Mentis Wave said, and he's right about this, it turns out there's many ways to kill a man. You don't necessarily need a gun. It turns out you can kill a man with a rock and a sling. Kill a man by... you can kill a man entirely by accident if you hit him the wrong way. Just... turns out that, again, it's actually, there's many ways to kill a man. You don't necessarily need the guns to do that, but you do need the guns to equalize the playing field when you're defending yourself against someone. Because the person who is going to break the what would you say, implicit social agreement to assault you is not going to play fair, so there's no reason you should play fair. That's all I gotta say.
Felt like I was in the middle of the ocean. I was trying to like grasp onto a flotation device, checking all of these accounts for their take, like, be normal, be normal. Nothing. Nobody. I'm just drowning in a sea of evil, apparently. Maybe I was just blind up until now.
This actually kind of reminds me of apparently Sneeko being horrified that so many Muslims that he respected are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. Yeah, not everyone. Again, not everyone on the side of a evil ideology is going to be evil. Sometimes people just genuinely have a misunderstanding of what the ideology is, or they have a different view. They think that they can move the ideology in such a way that the evil parts are excised from it. And Shoe is herself admitted to be a socialist. Socialism is an evil ideology, but Shoe herself is not an evil person. She's just morally confused. Those are not the same thing. And Shoe is having a reckoning at the moment with this understanding that the people around her, again, are not the people she thought they were. It's not at all, again, it's not at all surprising to me because I was actually familiar with a lot of this underlying psychological substrate beforehand. It was, again, the degree of brazenness that shocked the hell out of me. But like for a Muslim to see Islam in its truest form, unadulterated by the later peaceable innovations of the religion. So like we're talking about like Zudi Jasir, to like see what the Quran and the Hadith in context actually teach. It can be quite shocking because it can be quite shocking to understand that the world you lived in was a curated illusion. Because again, there are people who do actually take the time and effort to curate these illusions to trap people in, because they gain power by trapping people in these illusions. Oftentimes, people end up being trapped in the very illusion that they craft as well. Don't get me wrong. That's not always the case, but that does happen. But yeah, to my shock, the ideology that promotes murder to overthrow capitalism is filled with a bunch of horrendous people. And the one of the few good ones is now finding out that a lot of the people that were co-religionists with her might not necessarily have the same moral framework she does. Because again, she doesn't actually believe in the murder part. So
maybe they changed, maybe I changed. Is everyone going crazy or am I going crazy? I don't know.
Oh no, this is by design. Like a lot of the things that have been happening recently, a lot of them have a Gnostic substrate, and all of it happening at once is not by conspiracy, but by function to drive you crazy. Because this Charlie Kirk incident may have been a conspiracy. It also may have been a standalone complex. There are standalone complexes that do happen. Lone wolves that act in service of the ideology, even though there's no actual like person behind the scenes. There are also very clearly like conspiracies forwarding Marxism under the Deng Xiaoping strategy of it doesn't matter if the cat is black or white, a cat is still a cat. You have movements like FOSI doing that. You have this idea that, oh yeah, we must save the world through our enlightened idea and through will to power. With Visa and MasterCard, they may not necessarily be socialists, but there is definitely that will to power. We will shape the world by our own hands type thing going on with how they're trying to regulate the market as of right now. And that's actually a conspiracy. That whole interplay between the payment processors and FOSI and all of these other groups, that's an actual conspiracy. And then you have just sometimes there isn't needed a conspiracy. If people meet and they have shared interests, they don't necessarily have to actually talk and conspire anything. They simply act in their own best interest, which happen to align with each other. That is another thing that happens. And when you put all this together, that there are real conspiracies, that there are just people who have mutually shared interests, and you have standalone complexes, it is all going to be overwhelming by function, because it's a widespread infection of again, an uncounted number of people's minds. So, if this makes you feel unsettled, good, because there's a lot of work to do to oppose Gnosticism, this anti-realism, and try to get people, by whatever means we can, back to living in the real, which is the only place they can actually live.
All I know is it is clear how they reacted to this is how they would react to me, my family, my friends, you, your family, your friends, that have ever stepped out of line from the nebulous, ever-changing definition of progressive. These are...
And she was a mom. So when people started saying they should kill her, like they should kill his kid, I guarantee you that fucking probably hit her particularly hard too. Because it's not just that these people would cheer on that if she was murdered, these people would cheer on if her, I don't know if she has a son or a daughter, if her child was murdered. That's a pretty fucking eye-opening realization. It's like with the murder of that Ukrainian woman. Like, most families, when they heard about that, well, the thing that came to mind was, that could have been my sister. That could have been my daughter. It's pretty fucking eye-opening.
People I thought were level-headed, they were
Sarutska, that's what her name was.
left-wing, but you know, like they were one of the good ones. Like, you can joke with them, you know, they weren't those like woke SJWs, like they were cool, we can disagree and still be friends. You know. Your friend wouldn't celebrate you being murdered, of course. But if they would celebrate an exact clone of you that wasn't you, that had all the same opinions, or some of the opinions that you have, if they would celebrate that clone being murdered, they're not your friend. I'm friends with people who are friends with Charlie, and I see how they are completely broken about this. Seeing them like
Understandable.
this, and at the same time my other friends posting shit like, "Rip bozo." It's just sick. It's just sick shit. Personally, I would rather live in a world full of Charlie Kirks who would sit down and debate than a world full of people who agree with me but would murder people who don't. Because if it's now normalized to just murder people who disagree with you politically, we don't have a society. Like, that's it. It's over. But some of these people in particular, like, why the fuck are you celebrating? You! They think you're a fucking Nazi too. They'll make a nice compilation of all the hot takes you've had over the years and spread it around to justify your murder. You don't get it, do you? We are all Charlie Kirk. I have been doing this for 11 years. I have been harassed, doxxed, threatened, whatever, you name it, for 11 years by the left. And it hasn't moved me an inch because that's not how politics works. That's lunch table politics. I've talked about this before. People on your side being mean to you doesn't mean you overnight change your opinions on, like, healthcare. It doesn't work that way. I still have all my economic left opinions. I'm for strong social safety nets, workers' rights, unions, wealth caps, whatever. That has not changed. This is not me leaving the left because, frankly, I don't even know how to do that. This is me and many, many people looking around us at our so-called allies and realizing that even though we might share some, like, political opinions, we fundamentally do not have the same values or morals. And are we really allies if we agree on, like, taxes, but don't agree on the sanctity of human life? I don't know. The way we view death now is just crazy. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the desensitization, in part thanks to the internet. You used to have to go out of your way to see gore and stuff like that, and now you're just scrolling
Yeah,
on Twitch
back in the
and
live
you
leak
see
days.
someone set on fire, if someone gets stabbed on a train. And when someone like Charlie dies, it's not even real to people anymore. Like, it's like a movie or show. Oh, that character died? Good, I hated that character. Like, no, that was a real human being with a family and kids, actually.
It's not that exposure to violent media has desensitized us and therefore made this acceptable. It is that, again, the underlying framework with which they view the world does not allow them to see you as a human being. I already talked about this earlier, but no, once again, when you realize that this is all a Gnostic religion just disguised as atheism, this all starts to make a lot more sense, because you're not actually the same kind of entity they are in their head. You just wear the same kind of face. You are the same in appearance, but not in essence. So there's no real reason to talk to you. And yeah, they may not use the same language, but there's a point at which when things are so similar that even if you don't use the same words, it doesn't fucking matter. It's like when these people talk about structures and superstructures, and you just have to point out, can you point to any of this stuff? These are pure abstractions. They don't actually exist in the world. Like, they don't have any mass. They don't have any location. They may exist in time, yeah, but to be fair, pagan gods often exist in time. But they're immaterial. They are non-local, so they don't really exist in a space. They exist diffusely through their effect. They are causally potent, despite being completely immaterial, and they have moral authority or moral value. Like, they're moral agents. This sounds like a ghost, because it's exactly what it is. It's a spirit. It is an archon, to use the Gnostic term. But, like, the gods of paganism, they were just the spirit, the form, the thing that makes something what it is, of the thing that they were gods of. So, for example, when you see in the religious examination personifications of, or spirits of, sorry, that was probably loud, spirits of, like the spirit of Mount Fuji, you can say that the person worshipping the kami of Mount Fuji is worshipping Mount Fuji, because the kami is the thing, the essence, the form that gives that mountain Fuji its essential qualities, that makes it what it is, and without which it would not be that thing. So yes, worshipping the god of Mount Fuji is worshipping Mount Fuji, because they're not really separable from each other. And again, this applies to pure abstractions too. There are many gods in, for example, the Roman religion, which were pure abstraction. The god of freedom, or the goddess of freedom, Libertas, was the personification of a pure abstraction. It was still a god, because it was the form that instead allowed that thing to be what it is. So anytime freedom was exercised in the Roman religion, it was through participation in the form of Libertas. And this is exactly what we see in this structuralist worldview. The structure of capitalism doesn't actually exist. It's a pure abstraction. But neither does the structure of patriarchy, or the structure of whiteness, or any of these other structures that these people oftentimes invoke that need to be dismantled. And that's another thing to show that this is not the same thing as a descriptive view of the world. You can't, for example, dismantle the speed of light. The speed of light isn't a thing that exists in and of itself. It's a description of how something acts. Physical laws can't be dismantled, because they aren't things in of themselves. They are observations and descriptions of how physical entities actually act. Capitalism is not a description in the Marxist worldview of how something acts. It is a system. It is a existing thing that actually constrains with causal power, its own causal power. So, yeah. It is just a secularization of the old Gnostic worldview. These are just the secular description of spirits acting in the world. And just, again, this is fundamentally religion pretending to be not religion. This is not all religions are created the same. Some are very warlike. This one is very warlike. It's also very insidious. I'm going to have to go back just a little bit to figure out remember what she was talking about specifically.
Dies, it's not even real to people anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
A movie or show. Oh, that character died? Good. I hated that character. no, that was a real human being with a
Mhm.
family and kids, actually. Like, that was someone's son. The internet has turned real people into nothing but cartoon characters that disappear when you close an app.
Yeah, because remember, in their head, their enlightened idea is real, but what they observe with their sensible reality, if it conflicts with that enlightened idea, is unreal. And again, you're not really a person to them.
I remember for years people would be like, oh, when you have kids, you'll change your mind on XYZ. And I was like, no, that's not gonna happen. No. And they were right. Almost overnight, you stop being so selfish, nihilistic. You stop having utopian fantasies of wanting to live in a post-capitalist society. And all you want is for the world to be safe. For the world to be safe and normal. And all that matters is your family and your community. And then your country, and then the world. You know? But we can't save the world. You can't. But you can save the people around you. You can't say to these people who are celebrating this and justifying this, you can't say, what if that was your dad or your brother getting killed for their opinions, because they've already cut those people off.
Yep.
They've already cut those people off out of their lives. And posting videos and pictures of Charlie's wife and young kids will not move these people at all. Because they hate their lives. They hate their families. They are atomized bug people. They are the unfortunate product of modern society.
I'm going to have to pause this for a moment. I don't agree that it's atomization. I mean, atomization does play a part, but it's mostly, again, the Gnostic infiltration, the infection of this malevolent meme. And it's a very complicated meme, to be perfectly honest. It's a complex meme structure. But it's like a virus. Just like a virus will insert its own DNA into a cell so that it replicates itself. This is exactly how Gnosticism works. It'll take a worldview that already exists, insert its own mimetic structure into that worldview to subvert it, to recreate Gnosticism just under a new guise so it survives. This is exactly how Christian supposedly, I hate that religious studies people can't fucking use terms correctly, but this is how, like, Christological Gnostics operated. They pretended to be Christian groups. You have things like liberation theology. You have, again, Hegelianism. You have things like the Albigensians. And they pretended to be Christian when in fact they were a Gnostic religion. It happened in Judaism with Kabbalah. It happened, in paganism. We had, for example, the Orphic mysteries. You have, for example, Advaita, which is the antithesis of Dvaita, which is very suspiciously similar to the Abrahamic religions, just Vedic. And when it came time for the secular the rise of secularism, Gnosticism just transplanted that mimetic structure like a virus transplanting its its DNA, its RNA into the worldview of the secularists and produced a Gnostic pseudo-secular religion. There are secular worldviews that are not Gnostic and are actually very strongly resistant to Gnosticism. Objectivism comes to mind very clearly, but this is primarily a religious thing. And the quicker we figure that out, and we can get the fucking Thomists and the Objectivists to work together, against this, the quicker we can actually resolve this problem.
Bug people. They are the unfortunate product of modern society, and I feel bad for them. I do. I pity them, and I wish I could help them. But I have bugman fatigue. And for the people
fair.
who will
come absolutely fair
rage with a list of all of Charlie Kirk's biggest hits to convince me that I should hate him and should not mourn him. If you thought what Charlie Kirk said is wrong, you could have debated him. He was one of the few people left willing to do that, and now he's gone. Charlie was a fan of free speech, but I'm worried whoever comes after Charlie won't be. Even from a political standpoint, not even a personal human standpoint, why are you celebrating, the most popular college Gen Z political pundit dying? Why are you celebrating him becoming a martyr? Say goodbye to that young male vote. All the liberal Joe Rogans in the world are not fixing this. I just hope for the sake of this country that political violence does not become normalized, does not become a thing. I really don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see retaliation. I don't want to see us fall into a civil war. I don't know. This has all been...
Yeah, the Civil War rhetoric is ridiculous because, again, the reason they took him out, and it's shocking that I have to say this, is that it worked. And that alone is enough for me to suggest that we should actually consider continuing what Kirk was doing, because again, it was very clearly working. And the thing is like, if you're a religious person, your being wronged does not give you license to do wrong. God will still hold you to account for those things you do and do not do. And again, last time I ended up talking to Doctor of Insanity about the criteria for just war, for war to be just. And I don't think that a civil war can actually fulfill the criteria for a just war, especially the way it would be waged. And if you don't think that God isn't going to care about how you conduct yourself in war, then I think you are underestimating the holiness of God. Obviously, God's forgiveness is infinite. There's nothing that you can actually do in this world besides besides refusing to, turn back to God, that he can't forgive. But that being said, that would require the recognition that what we do sometimes, the bad things we do, are actually bad, and then turning back to God as both redeemer and, what would you call it? Refiner. Refiner, right? With the right word? Reformer. I guess there's another one. Because it's not just about some abstract quality of being, of doing good. This is the mistake that the deontologists make. The deontologists have the mistake of doing good, and, as the primary goal of their entire system. And the consequentialists have the error of like doing good as well. But these systems don't actually teach you how to be good. And that's where virtue ethics comes in. God wants you to be a virtuous person. And everyone has their vices, but there are real consequences to war. And I don't think we're ready or just in declaring a civil war just yet.
Extremely blackpilling. I think I'm gonna take a break from politics. I don't know. I'm a YouTuber. Like, I'm not a political pundit, right? I'm not.
That's entirely fair.
My purpose here is to entertain, is to make people laugh. That is what I'm going to do. That is what I will continue to do. The news cycle will move on. The world will move on. Charlie Kirk's kids won't move on. His daughter won't move on. His daughter does not have a dad anymore.
I did see some videos of not videos, but I did see some people. Well, actually, there were videos and tweets of people effectively mocking the daughter, who literally saw her dad murdered before her, saying effectively that they, and again, they speak very collectively sometimes, as in like sometimes they'll use the collective we. But I do remember seeing some tweets and some videos where these monstrous and people were saying that they rescued his daughter from him. Absolute fucking ghoulish behavior. But these people actually do think like this. Again, you cannot live side by side with people who just think you are ontologically evil. Like, the divide here is, even though the divide here is bigger than the divide between Catholics and objectivists, this is a massive, unbridgeable gap. This is something that cannot be resolved through coexistence, because coexistence is not something you can do with people who want you to die. You have to physically remove them from your spaces. And we have been seeing some of this, with people calling OSHA and getting these monsters who are advocating for the fucking murder of their, effectively their coworkers through implication, fired. And hopefully we keep that firing process up.
That fucking sucks. That sucks. I don't know what else to say. I love you guys. Thank you for listening to my crash out. If you're new here, my videos usually are not like this. They're actually nothing like this. They have music in the back. They're fun. They're goofy. Things are just not fun and goofy right now.
I mean, yeah.
I promise you the next video will be. Yeah, thank you for your attention to this matter. Bye.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I basically said everything that I intended to say about this, or at least regarding what she said. But yeah, actually, right here, it's not a mental health issue. He's absolutely right. I haven't seen this video either, but I don't know how Ascension Presents feels about React videos. I do know Shoe0nHead allows React videos. She actually watches VTubers reacting to her videos. I don't know if she's going to watch this, but there's not really much you can say about this kind of stuff, to be perfectly honest. It's just malevolent people being absolutely evil. And I oh god, I gotta watch this later tomorrow. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I'm new to the streaming thing. I don't know how to end this, so I'm gonna see if I can raid someone, because it does look like there's someone in my lobby. Terrible time. At the people have found out that we're living in far darker times than they thought we were. So. I guess. Have a lovely day. Let me see if I can do this raid.